Hi everybody, thanks for staying late on a Friday. I feel like I'm keeping everybody after school, but the only thing you have to look for out there is more clear traffic, so keep your seat. Hopefully you'll be a little bit entertained. So, hello everyone, my name is Bisson. I'm a retired intelligence officer with Canadian Security Intelligence Service, and I'm currently the director of the Global Intelligence Knowledge Network. I've been fortunate enough to work for Canada's national security and intelligence community for over 25 years, and upon my retirement in 2020, I decided to start a digitally based business that focuses on providing better understanding of how national security and intelligence collection has an effect on all of us. After my retirement, I began to notice that the digital frontier was becoming more and more a domain where espionage, sabotage, and foreign interference threats were taking place, and non-state actors were working on behalf of Canada's adversaries to threaten our national security. Because of my background, experience, and essentially just a sheer interest in national security threats, I wanted to gain a better appreciation for this growing phenomenon. So I completed a Cybersecurity Analyst certificate program in 2023 with IBM. Although I'm a retired intelligence professional, I keep an eye on everything intelligence related, but more from a global perspective, as opposed to just Canada-centric. I've had the opportunity to speak on CTV, CBC, and global news on multiple topics relating to national security issues and related to Canada and international. I do a weekly podcast called the Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up, where I dive into international stories concerning intelligence collection, terrorism, espionage, cyber espionage, and foreign interference. I provide analysis and insights with each story to allow the listener a better understanding and appreciation for what is happening in the shadow world of intelligence and how that spills over into our day-to-day lives. So when I heard about BSides Conference, I thought I would submit an outline for a presentation on how our adversaries use stolen data in an effort to threaten Canada and our Western allies' national security. So with that, I'll dive into national security risks associated with data breaches and how adversaries are weaponizing stolen information. As I said, I'm not a cybersecurity expert or an academic, and as such, I will only be able to provide answers on issues that don't get too technical, so hopefully no one's too disappointed in that. However, my experience with national security threats and training through the IBM Cyber Analyst certificate gives me a foundational understanding of what these dangers and what the dangers and how these dangers and breaches are posed against us. So data breaches as a national security threat. Data breaches, often seen as issues of privacy or corporate security, have now become major national security threats. When adversaries gain access to personal data, sensitive government information, or critical infrastructure details, they open up avenues to destabilize entire systems, influence governments, and threaten our strategic defenses. In other words, each data breach isn't just a digital incident, it's a potential for national security vulnerability. In today's talk, I'll walk us through a series of case studies that illustrate how these breaches are used against us. What we'll cover. We'll start with the SolarWinds attack orchestrated by Russia's Cozy Bear Group, which compromised US government agencies and exposed vulnerabilities that could impact military and diplomatic operations. We'll move on to China's APT-10 breach of Equifax, where stolen personal data of over 145 million North Americans has been used to create profiles for targeting and recruitment. Finally, we'll take a look at Iran's APT-33, which has exploited data from North American aerospace and energy sectors to strengthen its own military positioning. By comparing these cases, we'll see the distinct ways Russia, China, and Iran use stolen data to gain military advantages, target key personnel, and threaten essential infrastructures. Together, these examples underscore the importance of understanding data breaches as strategic threats that require serious countermeasures. Let's examine how these data breaches are being weaponized, the motivations behind these tactics, and the steps that are necessary to secure our national infrastructure against future threats. So how do adversaries weaponize data breaches? Adversaries aren't just stealing data for the sake of access. They're actively using it to undermine security, shift the balance of power, and gain leverage over key figures and institutions. Here's how data breaches are being weaponized by state actors today. 1. Building strategic profiles for targeted influence and recruitment. Adversaries often leverage data breaches that contain personal information, names, financial histories, family ties, and even social media activities to build detailed profiles on specific individuals. For example, the breach of Equifax by China's APT-10 group provided a wealth of personal information on over 145 million Americans and Canadians. This kind of information can be strategically useful for recruiters, insiders, influencing individuals, or targeting specific groups within government and critical industries. When state actors understand a person's financial situation, connections, or vulnerabilities, they can approach them with precise and often irresistible offers that align with their unique needs or interests. 2. Exposing critical infrastructure vulnerabilities. Data breaches that reveal information about infrastructure systems, like the recent attack on the energy and aerospace sectors by Iran's APT-33, are particularly concerning. Access to these networks don't just provide insight into operational details, it exposes structural vulnerabilities that could be exploited to disrupt services or conduct sabotage. For example, detailed data on power grid configurations or military communication networks can enable adversaries to launch targeted cyber or even physical attacks, causing widespread instability. Gaining military and diplomatic advantage. Stolen information often includes details on defense projects, technical advancements, or diplomatic communications, giving adversaries a window into strategic decisions and capabilities. In the SolarWinds attack, Russia's Cozy Bear exploited a data breach to access sensitive information across multiple US government agencies, including departments involved in defense and foreign policy. By intercepting this data, Russia's intelligence agencies may be able to anticipate US and Canadian actions in military and diplomatic spheres, gaining a strategic advantage that could shift the balance in sensitive geopolitical areas. 4. Sabotaging national security and public trust. Adversaries know that large-scale data breaches can erode public trust in government institutions. By continually targeting sectors like healthcare, finance, and defense, they can undermine confidence in these systems, making citizens and officials wary of data security integrity and breach that security. For example, if data from a breach is manipulated and then released to suggest governmental corruption or incompetence, it can fuel misinformation, reduce trust, and create a sense of instability that serves adversarial interests. 5. Fueling economic and competitive edge. Many data breaches involve intellectual property, theft, or access to proprietary technologies. When adversaries obtain blueprints, algorithms, or strategic plans, they can undercut industries in North America by rapidly developing competing technologies or by offering similar solutions at reduced costs. Think of EVs, for example. The economic edge that other countries acquire weakens North American companies and gives our adversaries the upper hand in the global markets. In each of these scenarios, data isn't just a resource, it's a weapon that adversaries are using to influence, destabilize, and weaken North American institutions. This weaponization of stolen data represents a critical security threat that demands robust defense measures, not only at the corporate level, but across all our national infrastructure. Case studies of data breach weaponization. To illustrate the weaponization of these data breaches, let's examine 3 real-world examples that underscore how adversaries exploit stolen information to advance their strategic goals. The Russian hacking group Cozy Bear, APT-29, SolarWinds hack. In 2020, the SolarWinds attack, orchestrated by Russia's Cozy Bear, infiltrated critical US government agencies, gaining access to data from multiple federal departments. Through SolarWinds software, which serves thousands of clients, Cozy Bear embedded malicious code that opened backdoors to over 18,000 networks, including those tied to military and diplomatic initiatives. This breach allowed Russian intelligence to monitor sensitive communications between military intelligence and diplomatic leverage. The implications? Prolonged vulnerabilities across US and Canadian agencies, potentially influencing global diplomatic balances. The Chinese hacking group APT-10 stoned Canada, the Equifax data breach. In 2017, China's APT-10 group compromised Equifax, extracting personal data on over 145 million Canadians and Americans. This wasn't merely a case of identity theft. It was a calculated move to create detailed profiles on individuals that could be later used for recruitment, targeting, or exploitation. Equipped with personal, financial, and background data, the Chinese Communist Party could easily identify potential insiders or leverage specific profiles for espionage. This breach exemplifies how personal information, once stolen, becomes a tool of influence and insider access within North American institutions. Iran's APT-33 hacking group has repeatedly targeted the North American aerospace and energy sectors, aiming to acquire data that could support Iran's own military advancements or disrupt rival infrastructures. The stolen data encompasses not just industry operations, but intricate technical details on critical energy grids. By having this information, Iran gains the capacity to conduct cyber sabotage on North American infrastructure, potentially causing widespread instability across sectors essential to national defense. Comparative analysis of Russia, China, and Iran. Looking across these case studies, we see each sector and state actor pursuing different approaches, yet they all work towards the same end, leveraging stolen data to advance their power. Russia's focus on military and diplomatic intelligence, using stolen data to fortify its position on the global stage. China emphasizes personal data exploitation, transforming private information into tools for espionage and insider threats. Iran's interest lies in critical infrastructure sabotage, aiming to destabilize and exert influence over the North American energy and defense sectors. Together, these examples highlight the severe implications of data breaches as modern tools of statecraft. Let's talk about how adversaries, particularly state-sponsored actors, go about targeting security professionals. These aren't just random attacks. They're highly strategic, sophisticated approaches to exploit individuals who, quite often, hold access to sensitive information, critical infrastructure, and insider knowledge. Their tactics are a combination of digital maneuvers and human intelligence techniques, all aimed at compromise. Let's break down some of the methods, some of the most common methods. First, social engineering and phishing campaigns. Adversaries often employ spear phishing emails and social engineering tactics. These aren't your typical spam emails. They're carefully tailored, exploiting information pulled from social media or public profiles to look as convincing as possible. And with the advent of AI, they continue to get more and more sophisticated. Take LinkedIn, for example. An adversary might browse a professional's profile, taking note of their connections, projects, and roles. I'm also on LinkedIn, by the way, just so you know. With this information, they craft a message so personalized that it's hard for the recipient not to engage. And this is just the start. Once trust is gained, the door is open for credential theft, malware, or worse. Next, we see targeting, recruitment, and influence operations. Using stolen personal data, adversaries build profiles that reveal a person's vulnerabilities, financial stress, personal circumstances, or professional ambitions. They know that if someone is facing financial strain or has professional aspirations, they may respond to offers that seem like a great career opportunity. These offers come disguised as consulting roles or speaking engagements. Some state actors even use legitimate singing business fronts to approach these individuals, making the opportunity seem all the more credible. Then there's the compromise of personal devices and accounts. Our adversaries know that security professionals, like many of us, often use personal devices for work or to access remote networks. They exploit any weakness in these devices, perhaps through malware or mobile apps, or by intercepting unprotected Wi-Fi connections. Malware might even be hidden in PDFs or Word documents shared among professional networks. Once they're in, adversaries use these personal access points to worm their way into more secure networks. Another tactic is insider threat cultivation. Once someone is marked as a viable target, adversaries might start grooming them. This isn't an overt recruitment. It's slow, calculated, psychological manipulation. I know, because as a former intelligence officer, I've done it. By offering minor rewards or incentives over time, they foster a sense of loyalty in the target. Eventually, the target might start with small leaks, sharing what seems to be harmless information, but the stakes escalate, leading them into much deeper security breaches. Professional conferences and events and event infiltration is also a tool in their arsenal. Conferences like BSides are ideal environments for adversaries to engage with security professionals, either directly or through trusted intermediaries. What starts off as a casual networking conversation might evolve into something deeper. I'm sure I've just kept everyone from coming up and talking to me after this presentation, but please don't feel like I'm going to think everyone's up here to corrupt. The adversary might suddenly probe for vulnerabilities of interest, or even test ideological leanings, anything that might make the individual receptive to later outreach. Finally, technical exploits and surveillance. Adversaries commonly use zero-day exploits or sophisticated malware to access networks that security professionals rely on. Whether it's through compromised Wi-Fi at a public spot, fake software updates, or manipulated resources, security professionals are often exposed to malware that records keystrokes, siphons data, or maintains continuous surveillance. When these tactics come together, they create a sophisticated, multi-layer approach that evolves with the cybersecurity landscape. For security professionals, this means the risk isn't just personal, it impacts organizational and national security. So let's talk about some key solutions and best practices for countering these adversarial strategies. Protecting security professionals requires a layered approach, merging technology, training, and intelligence. Here are some key recommendations. First, develop an intelligence-led data protection strategy. Incorporating threat intelligence into security operations is crucial. This means actively monitoring the indicators of compromise, or IOCs, those subtle signals that adversaries might be probing for weakness. Collaboration with intelligence sharing groups, such as Information Sharing and Analysis Centers, or ISACs, keep professionals informed about the latest adversarial tactics and strengthens data protection. Implementing comprehensive insider threat programs is also essential. Insider threat programs should detect, assess, and mitigate risks posed by individuals who might be compromised. This involves regular monitoring, spotting unusual behavior, and establishing policies for data use, encouraging employees to report suspicious interactions, especially with external contacts, which helps everyone understand the seriousness of recruitment efforts by adversaries. Strengthen security awareness and social engineering training. Education is not a one-time event. It needs to be continuous. Real-world scenarios help security professionals recognize and respond to social engineering and recruitment attempts. Training instills skepticism towards unsolicited emails or requests, building a mindset of caution and vigilance. Role-based access, control, and privilege minimization are critical. Access to sensitive data should be limited to those who absolutely need it, the need-to-know principle. Conduct regular audits to ensure only those with a genuine need have access. This way, if someone is compromised, adversaries face barriers to broader infiltration. Building trust and protecting competitiveness. By implementing the following, North American companies can ensure that they continue to build and maintain trust not only from their clients, but also from the citizens concerned about the real threat of national security, cyber espionage, and sabotage. These tactics will also help to maintain a healthy level of competitiveness between companies and corporations by ensuring the adversaries do not easily gain further proprietary information. Securing communication channels and devices is also fundamental. Using encrypted communications and enforcing multi-factor authentication on all systems is key. Encourage professionals to stick to secure virtual private networks and to avoid accessing sensitive systems on unprotected networks. Personal devices need enterprise-grade security if they're being used for any work purpose. Enhancing incident response protocols and simulating threat scenarios prepares us for real-world challenges. Incident response planning and simulations build resilience. Tabletop exercises prepare professionals for adversarial tactics, building agility, and incident response. Such exercises should include detecting and mitigating insider compromises. Conduct regular security and background checks. Routine screenings identify potential vulnerabilities among employees. Periodic updates and attention to red flags, like financial distress or unusual behavior, help detect susceptibility to recruitment. Encourage participation in threat information sharing initiatives. Engagement with industry platforms and government channels helps teams stay on top of the latest adversarial tactics. This knowledge sharpens a professional's ability to detect patterns and respond effectively. Finally, implement data loss prevention and endpoint detection and response tools. DLP systems monitor data flows, while EDR systems keep an eye on endpoint activities, flagging any unusual behavior. These tools add a critical layer of defense against unauthorized data access and exfiltration. By integrating these practices, organizations can better protect their security professionals against adversarial targeting. With an intelligent, layered approach, we make it more challenging for adversaries to compromise individuals and, by extension, the systems and organizations that they protect. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Hi, thanks for the talk. Can you just comment a bit on the thoughts that the Chinese program is actually, like the one with Equifax is part of a larger program that is trying to aggregate information from attacks like the General Administration Organization and Ashley Madison to create that big profile of people and some of their, activities that may lead them towards being an insider threat?
Right. So from an intelligence perspective, the Chinese Communist Party has always had this idea that it takes a billion grains of sand to make a beach. So the idea is to collect as much information as possible so that they can use it to influence others. You've seen this in multiple media reports when it comes to the Belt and Road system, where China has basically gone to a lot of other countries and said, listen, we'll build all your roads and everything as long as we have access to your infrastructure. The idea behind this is that the Chinese Communist Party will either try to influence through one way or through another. There's been a huge conversation about TikTok and whether or not ByteDance is collecting information for the purposes of further influence. So when you look at it from the perspective of the Chinese government trying to gather more information, it's either so that they can use it to propel their own economic goals or to have influence in other countries in which they feel are adversarial to them. So, does that answer your question? Okay.
How do I know whether I'm targeted?
That's a good question. Some of the things that I talked about in this presentation, I think, give you an idea to look at something twice. In my podcast, I always ended by saying, stay informed, stay curious, and stay safe. And I think that goes for security professionals everywhere. If there's someone who's showing you a level of attention that you think seems a little odd or seems a little off, you have to listen to that spidey sense. You got to ask yourself, is this person just trying to find out a little bit more so that it's a business transaction? That's what's really difficult. And sometimes sharing that information with other professionals in your own circles or even in your own company might give you that at least chance to say, no, it's okay, we know this person, he's reached out to others, there's not an issue here. And it also covers yourself down the road, as opposed to saying, well, I interacted with this individual, and yeah, sure, we talked a couple times, and maybe I shared some stuff with them, but, So.
Any other questions?
Hi. One thing that's been getting a lot of attention lately is the DPRK IT worker threat. What are your thoughts on that as I guess a former human person, and why do you think so many organizations and presumably their insider threat programs fail to catch it sooner?
I think it's really difficult because you have a lot of individuals who are acquiring positions within tech firms and other companies that are coming across as incredibly qualified. And I think like any other resource, these companies don't want to not get the brightest and the best. But the unfortunate thing is, by getting some of the brightest and the best, they might also be opening themselves up to more chances of insider threat, because these individuals are purporting themselves as being the brightest and the best, and they've got the credentials that are being backed up by their own countries. So on paper, they look great, and they might be in there for 6 months, a year, 6 years, but all that time that they're in there, they're actually a part of providing information back to someone else or another country. Thank you very much.